Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everybody and nobody. It is what is it? It's November 15th, 2019. November 15th, 2019. It is a Friday night in Los Angeles. Am I out? I'm not out, but I'll probably be out later today. But I wanted to throw down a couple of things on record today, as it is still a historical day in the United States for us all, as we have is it the fourth time or the third time in the history of the United States that we are having impeachment hearings, and so definitely a different time in history than most people. So it's good to actually be able to connect and converse about what's happening, and to go on record, if you will. And just so you know, that whenever I record this, it's live. So if I make mistakes, or if I say something that is inaccurate, or whatever my opinions may be that could possibly offend somebody, they are out there on the internets, and for the scrutiny of all, now and in the future. Today is a not only historical because of impeachment, and I'll just tell you right off the bat, I'm not. I think that this particular time in not in history, but what's happening right now globally, this is the least of our uh, troubles, and I think that we could spend more time working on advancements in other areas. I'm a big advocate of though a lot of people will hate this because they think that we should focus on other things that are more important, such as humanity. But I still think that this is actually a part of humanity. I'm a big proponent of space travel, and I actually, at one point in my life, wanted to be an astronaut. But coming from where I come from, there's just no way of really knowing how to do that. So hopefully, at some point, I will still get to do some space travel, even if you're not astronauts. I was hoping that it would be happening, or that we would have the availability by now to space travel, so travel to the moon, to Mars, pretty freely. Fortunately, that's not the case, and I'm very surprised by it. Um, so there you go. Now, what makes this even more eventful day, this particular time, or date, is today we had a bust, or an explosion, if you will, or a burst through the threshold of the Dow Jones today. The Dow Jones reached a record of 28,000 today. 28,000. Now I remember, I can't remember exact date, but I remember when when it was a big deal when the Dow Jones broke to 20,000. So now we're at 20,000. I think I remember when the Dow Jones, yeah, I remember also when the Dow Jones broke 18,000. So kind of a big deal. It's a big deal. And some people say it has to do with the fact that Ludlow basically communicated today that the U.S. and China are about to come to some agreement, some sort of trade agreement. I'm a little bit stuffy today, so apologies if hard to understand. But yes, so U.S. and China, their trade deals are supposed to happen, and if that happens, I'm going to tell you right now, uh, if that happens, and now I could be wrong, but I'm pretty certain that if a president is impeached, which I didn't think would happen, but based on, anyway, we can talk about that in a little. Well, I can talk about that, not us. Can talk about that a little bit more. I'm not going to go long today, but if the trade deal happens and the Dow Jones continues to increase, then we will definitely see President Trump back in the Oval Office again. And so For people that are against that, sorry. For people that are for it, congratulations to you. So motorcycle just drove by. I'm actually broadcasting from my store, in the front of my store, which is on a very busy highway. But I actually like the fact that it's busy and there's a big window, so you can actually see me through the window talking on the computer and to the cameras. So at some point, I will. Right now, I'm just releasing the actual live video straight through YouTube, but I will in the future release some more. Uh, what's the word? I'll release some higher quality videos in the future. But all of these things are being recorded on multiple ways, and eventually I will put it out with higher quality. But right now, this is kind of practice. So again, Dow Jones 28,000. That's pretty insane. I know at 18,000, I thought that that was insane, and so did other people. At 20,000, they thought that couldn't go any higher. Now we're at 28,000. I remember sentiments about it being at 22 or 24,000, that was just unprecedented. Or now we're at 28,000, and so that's a big deal for people that have money in the stock market and people that own businesses and people that are interested in investing in the U.S. economy and really the global economy, because as they say, where the U.S. goes, the world goes. So um, one of the big winners on the stock market today or this week, and I think they've had an increase all week, was Disney. And I meant to talk about this yesterday, but Disney launched its streaming service. So they're gonna, I think they've been ripping their content off of the internet or off of Netflix and all the various other streaming services such as Hulu and whatever other streaming services there are. Probably Amazon had some Disney products. Well, Disney took all of their products, as I know it, and they took all of their products off of the other streaming services, and now they have their own streaming service, which is, well, there's a story that I will tell one day. I actually have a interesting history with Disney, but I can't tell that story yet. But it is something that took place years ago. Actually, I don't think I could ever tell that story. But for anybody who listens to this who knows me, I'll tell you the story in private. But it's a pretty big deal. It actually, you could say that I had part in creating um, some of what we see today. Anyway, so Disney's stock was up by 7% today, and not a coincidence that Netflix inked a deal with Nickelodeon. I think it's Nickelodeon for their content. So they're gonna take all of Nickelodeon's kid content and bring it over to Netflix to create I guess, a more kid friendly section of Netflix, and then they're also going to make new content, so new movies, new cartoons, and so on, new series for especially for Netflix via the Nickelodeon protocol. So everybody's in the streaming service pond. So it's I can only, so right now people pay, I think we pay $200, $180 for cable and internet, I think, and um, we have internet in other locations as well. So it's a pretty expensive thing when you start to add it all up. Now you put on top of that, if you have kids, I don't have a need to have a Disney streaming service because my kids are older. Um, they're no longer kids; they're adults. But so you imagine you pay whatever it is, probably $15.99, $16.99, $12.99, $9.99. I don't know what the Disney streaming service costs, but you take that one, and then you got you got Hulu and you have Netflix, and I think you can do HBO, and uh, I think you can do not USA, ESPN, um, and the various other smaller streaming services. I know I'm missing some of the larger ones, but before you know it, you're gonna have you get 10 of those services that cost $15 each, and you got $150 other bill for video entertainment. So it's getting kind of crazy out there. So you may have to make some choices on what to have and what not to have. But I'll tell you this: the one thing it does is diversifies the product that is streamed, and so hopefully the quality that we see in continues to improve. Because I actually think that, having watched a few series, I think that the content is great. So, for instance, if you're watching a series, what I mean by the content, I think that the information that's relayed when you watch a series is good. Uh, I don't actually, with the exception of Breaking Bad, um, what else was great? I mean, people like Game of Thrones. I I didn't watch the whole thing, so I watched the first couple of seasons. So it's probably sacrilege for the people that stream that I say that I feel like, I mean, if you're gonna put, so let's, and again, this could be a future post, but let's talk about be the greatest movies of all time. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that I think the greatest movie of all time is The Godfather. Well, Godfather 1 and 2 are in the top, the top five, both of those movies. So, as so I think that sets the sort of bar for video content. And then if The Godfather is at number one, then you take The Godfather, and don't get me wrong, Breaking Bad doesn't even fit in the category of The Godfather either. But I thought the acting was mostly good, and the storyline was uh, great. Actually, The Wire also was a great storyline and actually well done. I think the consistency of these, let's say The Godfather, The Wire, and The Wire in particular, the consistency of those two, it's hard to be consistent in a series, but The Wire was very consistent. Anyway, that's for another discussion. But my point is that the the Godfather is the pinnacle of movie making, and you can even include in the top five Goodfellas and some other Scorsese movies. But if you compare those movies to what we have in streaming service, or movies that are made for uh, streaming services, not to binge watch, but just movies, because I don't think a series can actually hold up against a movie. Um, I think it's just too long to keep consistent. Again, but so for another post. But anyway, um, I think that the quality of product from streaming services is not as good as, let's say, The Godfather, and I think that so it has changed our filter, or our understanding of what quality filmmaking is. And so with that, um, I hope that with the democratization of streaming services, or the uh, the fact that there's so many streaming services, hopefully that increases the quality that's out there. Because right now people are just putting out things that are probably B quality and not A plus quality, and it would be great to have A plus quality. So if you disagree with that, that's fine. Nobody's listening, so nobody's going to disagree. But if somebody happens to hear this in the future, write a comment and tell me what your top 5 movies are, and then we'll discuss this on a later post. So I got a couple more minutes here, and just want to talk about the impeachment. So Ambassador Yovanovitch, um, I'll just say this: she seemed like a an honorable and decent person. At least she was able to uphold that kind of impression when she was on the stand today, and she seemed a little wounded by how she was treated, and which maybe prior to this hearing she could have seemed a little disgruntled, because it happens even if you're innocent, you can still be disgruntled if somebody's treated you unfairly, um, or fairly. I think she accepted the fact that she could be removed from position for any reason, though I think she felt like she had given service to this country, and she expected to be treated a little bit differently. So I think that read through in her testimony today. I don't want to open up the whole conversation again, or should I say, I don't want to open up the monologue about what I think about this impeachment thing. But I think that the questions that they're asking and the answers that are being given are kind of relaying uh, a non-biased point of view, from what I can see. I didn't watch all of it today. In fact, I was driving while listening today, so I wasn't able to pay attention to facial expressions too much, or inflections in the voice, or any of that stuff. But so far, if I was watching this and I was a young parent, I would, if you just take Taylor and Yovanovitch as people in the ability to express themselves in a way that seems honorable and poised, that would be something that I would be interested in having my kids do. It seems they're articulate, they are likable, and I think this lady, although I think they actually left Russia, so she probably, well, I didn't hear in the beginning, but I'm sure she speaks Russian, and possibly other languages. But anyway, I these people are admirable, and I appreciate the fact that they work for this country. They're honorable people. So we'll talk a little bit. I'll talk a little bit more about the impeachment um, proceedings next week, as I'm going to take a look at the whole testimony that happened today. I'll look or watch it back, as they say, and see what actually happened. One thing that Trump has done, and I haven't done a lot of research into this, but he wants insurers and hospitals to show real prices to the patients. Now, if this actually happens, and if they're talking about real pricing, this is a big deal. So look into that. If it's true, amazing. You should be all for it. We'll all look into it together, and um, I'll keep you informed on it. Thanks. Good night.